Hey there, this is Spanky the Driving Dude with All Things Driving, and I have Lily in the house today. Say hello, Lily.
Hi.
Guess what? She just drove 47.1 miles on the interstate here in Tennessee. Tell me right now, as you're eating your popsicle, listen, we're eating popsicles. Tell us your initial reaction now that you're off of the interstate.
Well, it was really scary to start, and I don't know, I'm done now. It was so much easier than I thought it was going to be.
Easier than you thought, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So you had to merge on, and what's SMOG stand for then?
Signal mirror over the shoulder.
Yes, so that you had to merge on. And what speed did we get up to initially? Wasn't it a construction zone or something?
Yeah, it was 60.
Yeah, 60. So you had to get it up to 60. And she started probably, it was about 3:45. So rush hour traffic had already started. And then you did some lane changes?
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel on those?
I didn't like being around all the trucks and everything, but I was fine in the end, so.
A lot of big 18-wheel trucks, right? And you'd never driven on the interstate before prior to today. You guys hear that? That's nuts. You parents out there, you're going to have to probably take your teens on the freeway / interstate at some point. But what I've wanted to do at Spanky's Driving Academy is have the parents just leave it to me so that I could, show them the way that I teach. And that way I don't have to undo anything, So most of the time we were stuck in a construction zone, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of 60, and then we got to 70. And what about on the side of the road, on the shoulder?
There were a lot of trucks that had stopped and pulled over.
Yeah, there are a lot of broken down 18-wheelers and some maybe a minivan or SUV at some point. But then we got down on we were on 65 to start out, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got on 840, which goes east-west. And 840 is a 2-lane interstate. So you had cars whipping in and out, sharing only 2 lanes. So you get a lot of aggressive drivers on those 2-lane interstates. So for you, what did you like, the 2-lane interstate better or the 4-lane interstate?
I think they were both all right, but the 4-lane was better because people weren't trying to swerve around me all the time because I was going slow. Yeah.
You had a lot of the bozos just spreading out and getting all the way over into that fast lane and stuff. Yeah. So for the interstate parents and for any of you listening, I usually, my big fat not my F-150, I don't have that anymore. My Tahoe, it's a big V8. I may have mentioned this in previous episodes, but I just go 68, 69, or 70 in the slow lane. And that way, for 2 reasons, if there's an emergency with the vehicle, I could pull over onto the shoulder or exit the next exit. Or if there's a medical emergency with one of my family members, I can always pull over or exit the next exit as well. So we had Lily today. If it was a 60, we had her going between 55 and 60 because she's a newer driver. And we want her to be able to process multiple things happening at one time. So we had her go a little bit slower. If it was a 70, we had Lily go between 65 and 70. And she did really, really, really well. I'm very proud of you. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say to anybody in closing?
Well, it's just a lot easier than it seems. I don't know.
It is. So let me ask you this question. Where are you most likely to fall asleep? On an interstate or busy intersections and town driving?
I think definitely on an interstate.
Exactly. Why, parents and why, people? Because there's less stuff that stimulates your mind. You get up to speed on the interstate. Usually it's just a straight shot and you have the occasional billboard to read. Mm-hmm. Other than that, there's not much to stimulate your mind. Where intersections, town driving, there are people, coming through the intersections, pulling away from the curbs, coming out of driveways, etc. So, yeah, interstates, it could be easier in some sense, but then it can be more dangerous in another sense because you're going at such a high speed. So, anyways, with that said, Lily, thanks for keeping me alive. I am proud of you. Lily sings, by the way. Should we make her sing the entire national anthem right now? No. She's just going to eat her popsicle. So with that said, we're going to take off. We're going to do some more driving, and then I'll come back a little bit later on and finish this episode on interstates. Thanks so much, Lily.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so I am back, and Lily nailed it. She drove almost 55 miles on the interstate, by the time we were done. I'm very, very proud of her. For you parents, let's give you a little bit of insight into what I do when I work with a teen. So we teach something called Gap Gauge Go. And what it stands for is you got to look for the gap between the vehicles when you're about to merge onto the interstate. Why? Because you're going to fit into that gap. So if both vehicles you're going to merge in between into that gap are going 52, then you're probably going to want your teen to go 52 when they merge into the gap. Okay, so Gap Gauge Go. Look for the gap between the vehicles, gauge their speed and match it. If they're both going 68, then you want to match the speed at 68 when you merge in between. Obviously, if you're going too fast, you'll rear end the car in front of you. If you go too slow, you'll make the vehicle behind you slam on their brakes. And then the third one, obviously, is go. Fit your way in. Don't fight your way in and be aggressive just to get in. You really got to plan ahead. Keep an eye on your on-ramp, because your on-ramp only goes so far before you run out of on-ramp. Now, while you're doing all that, looking for your gap, gauging the speed and matching the flow of traffic, and then go, you also have to do your smog, which is signal to your left, look in your left mirror, look over your left shoulder to eliminate your blind spot, and then go. And like I said, fit your way in nicely. Don't fight your way in. Yes, there are probably going to be some bozos every now and then who they're going to pretend that they don't see you there. Yes, it is okay to look over at them and try and have eye contact. Eye contact can save lives. I've even had to roll down my window before and kind of throw my hand out the window and kind of wave to them to get their attention. And then a number of times they've looked over at me, noticed me, and then they've slowed down just a little bit to let me in. And that's what you're going to want to do for people trying to get in on the interstate as well. So if you're in that far right-hand lane, always be glancing over to your right when you see a new on-ramp that you're approaching. It's just courteous to let them in. If you see they're coming down the on-ramp really, really fast, they might have the momentum. So let up off your gas pedal a little bit and let their momentum go past you, and then they're going to smog signal mirror over the shoulder to their left, right in front of you. If you still have the momentum because maybe they're going too slow and they're not getting up to on-ramp speed quite enough, then you'll just continue going at your speed and allow them to get in behind you. And that might mean even speeding up a little bit. Let's say you're going 65, 66, and they're coming down the on-ramp going 62. We'll speed up a little bit to 67, 68, 69, 70. And that way you give them plenty of room to get in behind you. Occasionally, you're actually probably going to have to move over to let them in. So make sure you smog over to your left when safe. That way you can let a bunch of these cars into that slow lane. There's actually so much to talk about regarding the freeway, but I might skip around a little bit here and there. But let me just give you a few tips. I might give you a ton of tips, but here's a few. Make sure you drive in a dependable and predictable manner. Okay. Take your time. Be scanning left to right. Check your rearview mirror every 5 seconds. Check your speed every 5 seconds. And definitely be looking down the road 15, 20, maybe even 30 seconds down the road. Be a dependable driver out there. Predict what could happen out there if you're driving too close and, people start backing up. Everybody's taillights are going to start going on. And so you want to obviously maintain space. Be a safe and courteous driver. Spread the love around a little bit. Because if you do that, there's a good chance that other people will spread the love around when people spread the love around to them. Just keep your attention constantly on your driving. Distracted driving is anything that takes your mind or your eyes off of the road, and you definitely don't want to be doing that at a high speed. Also, make frequent traffic checks by looking in your rearview mirror every 5 seconds. Check your side mirrors too often. And when you're looking in your rearview mirror every 5 seconds on a freeway, you're going to be able to see if emergency vehicles are coming from behind you. And it gets a little bit noisy in your car because the wind or the tire hum or the engine hum, it's kind of loud inside your car. There might be a little bit of chatter between your passengers and you. You might have the radio up a little bit, or you might have the heater or the air conditioner on, and those all make a little bit of noise. So to be checking that rear view mirror every 5 seconds is really important for emergency vehicles, because you might not be able to hear their sirens, but at least you'll be able to see them. So let me ask you about that. What do you do if a fire truck or emergency vehicle, ambulance, cops are coming right up behind you and you see them coming from 10, 15 seconds back? What do? Do you move over to the right and slam on your brakes and stop on the freeway? No, you don't do that. You just move over to the right, slow down a little bit, because they're going to be flying past you in 0.01 seconds probably, and then they're going to be on their way, and then you can move back over if you want. But make sure you move over when it's safe. You don't want to just all of a sudden crank your wheel to the right and then you sideswipe the vehicle right next to you. Can you picture that? Not good, no bueno. Also, keep a safe following distance between your car and the vehicle that you're following. It should be 3 seconds. How do you tell if you're 3 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you? Well, here's a great way to tell. It's called the 3-second rule. When a vehicle in front of you passes a fixed reference point, or like a marker on the side of the road, could be a tree, lamppost, could be a broken down car, could be roadkill out on the side of the road, or whatever. When the car in front of you passes it, start counting off 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. And you should be at that same fixed reference point or marker that you chose by the end of 3 1,000. If you get there closer than 3 1,000, then you know that you're driving too close to the car in front of you. So just let up off your gas and recount again. That's really going to help you. Some people over the decades have said, well, it should be 1 car length per every 10 miles per hour you're driving. So if you're driving 70, would that be 7 car lengths? Yeah, I guess so, according to their logic. But a lot of people cannot quite tell what 7 car lengths are. So a lot of people aren't good with their depth perception. So the best way to do it is just count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. And now that will probably give you a little bit of a clearer indication of how far or close you are to the car in front of you. Okay. So, just keep checking your instruments often, your speed, your fuel supply. There's nothing worse than running out of gas on a freeway, and then your lights go on, your dashboard lights up or something like that, or, it just starts shutting down on you. You got to throw that puppy in neutral, right? Throw on your hazard lights and look over your right shoulder and move over when safe as many lanes as you can to get over to the shoulder. That's, like I said, that's another reason why I like being in the far right lane, because if there's ever an emergency with the vehicle, I can always just pull over right then and there onto the shoulder. Okay. Stay in the right lane if you're traveling slower than the rest of the traffic. That's good. But also, try to keep pace with the traffic, but don't speed. Don't go over the speed limit illegally just because other drivers are speeding. You want to do the right thing and obey the law. And a lot of people say, well, you know what? Everybody's going 82 and you're going too slow by going 70. So you're actually impeding traffic. Yeah, well, it's not so often that people are causing crashes on the freeway because they're going too slow. It's all the people that are driving recklessly and speeding that's actually upping the percentages of them causing a crash. So don't let people peer pressure you into speeding and breaking the law. Like I've said before in the past, I think that the faster the speed, the worse the car crash and the worse the carnage when you really think about it. It's pretty gross. So, just be alert for emerging traffic signs and vehicles entering the interstate from your right. Actually, in some interstates, there might be traffic coming from your left as well. Maybe it's an interchange from another freeway. And so the interchange might be coming from your left. By the way, now that I think about it, let me mention this to you. In our country, north and south interstate freeways, those are numbered odd numbers. So if you have I-5 North, the 405, those are in California, or 35E, 35I, 95, Interstate 65, those are all going north and south, and those are odd numbers. So if you have the 10 freeway, the 20, the 30, the 40 freeway, the 840, A lot of those those are all even numbers, and they go east to west across the country. I bet you didn't know that. Little hint, little tip for you. Little trivia, I guess. So, yeah. And watch out also for something called highway hypnosis or interstate hypnosis. That's when you just get, lulled into this hypnotic state because there's nothing to stimulate your mind. And it's like a drowsiness or unawareness. I'm not talking about a typical traditional drowsiness, but you just get kind of caught up in this unawareness by reduced activity and steady sounds of the wind, engine, or tire hum. And that's called interstate hypnosis or highway hypnosis. So all you drivers out there should be aware of its danger. So yeah, there you go. What can you do to fight that? Keep shifting your eyes back and forth and look well ahead on the road, but avoid staring at things. What I did one time when I was a teenager, I started looking at the telephone poles, and the wires going from the telephone poles kind of looked like a upside down rainbow kind of, and my eyes started getting fixated on those telephone poles and the wires. And before I knew it, I had a curve in the interstate, and I was going around the curve too fast or something like that, and it freaked me out. So yeah, watch out for that as well. Also, stop and refresh yourself at regular intervals. Take a break, get out of the car at least every 2 hours or so. I do that probably every 110 miles. I just pull over, stretch my legs, get something to eat, drink, go to the restroom, maybe at a rest stop or something like that. And yeah, that's a few tips for you. We also have something called the move over law. Okay, most states have it. In our state, basically, what it is that if there's any emergency vehicle stopped on the right-hand shoulder of the road, you have to move one lane over. And now that also includes any vehicle that has their hazard lights on. So it doesn't have to be a work or emergency vehicle. It's just any car, truck, SUV with their emergency hazard lights on. You now have to move one lane over to your left, or you can get a ticket. Now, what do you do if you can't move a lane over to your left because there are all these cars in that lane? Well, just slow down significantly. What I have even done is I've kept my blinker on, and I've also slowed down, because if there's a police officer on that shoulder and they look up and they look over and they see that I'm not moving over, but they see that my blinker is on, they'll know that I've at least attempted to move over, and they'll probably notice that there's traffic in the lane next to me so that I can't move over safely, and they'll probably be cool with that. Let's see. Also, tailgaters. There's two types of tailgaters, and I might touch on this in the future as well. Tailgating is a huge problem. Lots of people tailgate. They either tailgate passively or they tailgate actively or aggressively. You have to be very, very careful by looking in your rearview mirror every 5 seconds and being careful about what you do about those tailgaters. Never brake check them. Don't even tap your brakes lightly, because you could cause a crash or make the driver behind you angry, and then they start going off and road raging on you. How is it so dangerous? Well, if you tap your brakes lightly on a passive tailgater, that person's head might be turned because they're looking at their passenger. And that means they're driving passively, and they're not aware that they might be creeping up on you a little bit. So if you tap your brakes and out of the corner of their left eye, they see your brake lights go on, well, what are they most likely going to do? They're going to over-brake by slamming on their brakes really fast, and then all of a sudden they get rear-ended by someone. And God forbid, you get whiplash. There's a child in the car, and they get injured as well because they get rear-ended at high speed, and you don't want that. Now, there's also the active tailgater or the aggressive tailgater, and you could probably have eye contact with them, in your rearview mirror. And the dude's right on you, and he's staring at you, and he's trying to get eye contact with you in your rearview mirror. Don't slow down. Don't brake and be passive aggressive with them and all that stuff just to make them go around you. What do you do in both cases with active and passive tailgaters? Just move a lane over to your right and get that chump out of your life. Let them move on. Like I said before in the past, it's not about your ego. It's about getting from A to B safely. Now, the other question is, what if there's no right lane for you to move over in? What if you're already in the right-hand lane? Well, here's what I've done on like county highways or streets. I've actually turned right into a parking lot and I let that bozo tailgating me just go right past me. And then I, take a few seconds to turn around. I make a right-hand turn back out onto the street or the highway. And now I'm behind them probably 800 or 900 feet and they're out of my life. Yeah, but Spanky, why do you want to inconvenience yourself for 15 seconds by doing that? Because I don't want them behind me. That's why. Just, hey, it's worth my 15 seconds rather than me have to continuously check my rearview mirror more often than every 5 seconds and, thinking, oh, what's that guy going to do? He's going to ride my bumper. Is he going to bump me? Whatever. You know how people are. You guys have been out there driving sometimes as long as I have in some of your cases. Maybe some of you have been driving just a year or two or 5 or 10 years. I've been driving a long time, people. I'm a lot older than you think, huh? So watch out for those bozos out there on the road, okay? Remember, it's not about ego. I've even turned into like a parking lot and then wait a few seconds and turn back around and gone out on the road and I see them, fifth or a quarter of the mile up the road and they're out of my life and I feel much better doing that, okay? So there's another tip for you. You guys also, you know what the HOV lane is? It stands for high occupancy vehicles. It's also in some states nicknamed the carpool lane or the diamond lane because there's a diamond painted on that lane. So it could be called any one of those three. Well, what's it for? It's for vehicles with 2 or more people in it, buses with 2 or more people in it, motorcycles with only one person bike. And the reason they want the bikers in the HOV lane is that way they're all the way to the far left and they're out of everyone's blind spots. And that's the safest way to go. And also low emissions and energy efficient vehicles that have that decal or sticker on it. They're also allowed in the carpool lane as well. I call it the carpool lane or the diamond lane, but you can call it the HOV lane. So the HOV lane is also, or the diamond lane, carpool lane is also for certain times of the day. Sometimes it's probably like 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon. And those are the times you're allowed in the diamond lane if you have 2 people in your vehicle. That would include 1 driver and 1 passenger, okay? Now, can you get a doll and stick it in a car seat and pass it off as your baby? Well, you could try to do that, but if a cop is driving by, maybe he's a motorcycle cop and he looks in your window and he sees this doll in the car seat and he can tell it's a doll, he's gonna pull your butt over. Have people ever purchased blow-up dolls, stuck a mustache on them, sunglasses, and a wig, and passed them off as Larry, your best buddy, in the passenger seat? Oh yeah, people have done crazy things to avoid having to sit in traffic and saving 17, 18 minutes a day. But a lot of people, they don't want to drive with somebody in their car. A lot of times, their me time, their solo time is when they get in that car. And that's why we have so many cars out on our freeway systems across the country, because so many people are driving by themselves. So what if everybody did carpool and they had 1 or 2 people in their car with them? There'd probably be half the cars out there on the road. Well, we really tried to push that, about 20 years ago or so in LA. And they would have one day of the week designated like Carpool Tuesday or something like that. Everybody, let's save gas. You're saving a little bit of money. Harry, Larry, and Mary, they're all going to carpool together. But the problem is after a while, it didn't work. Why? Because Harry was always running late when Larry went to pick him up, and then they were late going to pick up Mary, and then Mary had dry cleaning she had to do, and she wanted to run by the dry cleaners to drop it off really quick. Oh, and then Harry needed his cafe latte or whatever you call it, and then before you know it, everybody's late to work, and the guy who picked them up in the first place is like, dude, I'm now late. And then Gary is going, you're all getting written up. And so Gary, Larry, Mary, and Harry now are all angry at each other for whatever reasons. And there you go. So a lot of people, they just don't like to drive with other people. They want their solo time, I guess. So you're in the carpool lane. You and Mary, I guess, you're switching lanes over to your right, and interchanges coming up. So what do you do at the interchanges? Those are big green signs. They're called guides and service signs because they're green. And you'll see oh gosh, it could be, could be 840 to Knoxville and 840 to Memphis, and they're going in two different directions, and you're headed south on the 65. Well, you got to figure out which way are we going to. Are we going east or are we going west? And they're going to have big white arrows under those signs. Well, you got to move over into the lane that corresponds to whatever direction you got to go in. So you really got to plan well ahead. Start switching lanes well ahead of time, probably at least a mile and a quarter, because if you're going 70, you're going to soak up that mile of freeway in about 50, 55 seconds or so. So if there's traffic, it's going to take you a little bit of time to move over a couple lanes so that you get to your correct interchange. So you have to really be careful. And you parents, make sure you teach your teenagers that. That way they're not hustling and bustling at the last second to try and move over 2 lanes and they become an aggressive driver because they're trying to get onto their correct interchange. What do you do if you're about to miss your interchange? Just move on. You're going to have to get off at the next exit, turn around, backtrack, get back on the freeway going the opposite direction so that you can get to your correct interchange. But never stop in the middle of a freeway, right? And don't slam on your brakes and cut people off because you're going to cause a crash and possibly injuries. Just move on. What do you do if you miss your exit? Move on to the next exit. That's the best, safest way to go. The bottom line is that the interstate can be fun to drive on, but you simply get up to speed, plan your route, look well in front of your car, keep checking your rearview mirror every 5 seconds, check your speed every 5 seconds, look around, keep your eyes shifting, and plan your route where you're going to go. This is all good stuff to teach your teenagers, to be responsible drivers out there on the interstate, because the freeway, man, that speed, it will mess you up, and it also clog the freeway for hours. And I don't know if you've ever been in traffic because of a big, crash up ahead, but that's even another reason to stay in the right-hand lane, because if there is a big truck, you might be able to get off at your very next exit because you're in the right-hand lane. And if you're past that exit, you might have to wait another hour and a half just to go a mile and a half. So teach your teens all of this stuff. Get them plenty of miles up on the interstate. Work on interchanges with them as well. That's really important. My daughter, Isabella, she did quite a bit of driving on the freeway prior to her getting her license. But these days, she hasn't needed to go on the freeway because she pretty much just drives to school and back and maybe up to the grocery store, to get some groceries for us. She helps with some of the shopping, which is good. And occasionally she might drive over to a friend's house. But that's it. These days, she's just very busy with school and volleyball. So what I need to do is I need to actually take her back out on the freeway and get her kind of going on that again. Because as she gets a little bit older, she might need to, go down 3, 4, 5, 6 exits, to get somewhere that she needs to go for whatever reason. So it's really important to get your teen time out on the freeway and get those miles in. In fact, let me remind you of that. Every teenager, in my humble opinion, needs about 1,200 miles driven on the road prior to them getting their license. And if you drive 1,200 miles with your teen, that's probably going to add up to about 50 hours or so. So whip out your calculators. Let me do mine right here. 1,200 miles divided by 50. That adds up to being about driving 24 miles per hour. And that's them putt-putting around town, hitting intersections that are red lights, stop signs, slowing down to them, trying to get back up to speed. It all turns out to be about 24 miles per hour. And my daughter, she ended up with 1,650 miles by the time she got her license. And let me do that again. 1,650 divided by 52 hours it took her. She ended up driving almost 31 miles per hour or so, because we did a lot of interstate driving. So obviously you're at a faster speed, so that average miles per hour went up a little bit higher. So there you go. I really appreciate you guys tuning in today. Hey, everybody, say thank you to Lilly. Oh, she's not here anymore. But thank you, Lilly, wherever you are. She's at home. We really appreciate her stopping by and sharing her interstate story and her experience with us on her first time ever on the Interstate Freeway. And we appreciate you, girl. You're awesome. Keep going. And if you're her mom or dad listening out there, very proud of her, your daughter. She's really coming along really well out there on the roads. So with that said, I am Spanky, the driving dude, with all things driving. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Our website is also spankysdrivingacademy.com. You can reach me there. Oh, we're also on our YouTube channel. That's at Spanky's Driving as well. There's some videos there. Thanks for playing today. Rock on and rock steady.